Less money, more problems. The Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee ended February with just under $45 million in cash on hand. That's according to newly filed FEC reports. And that's less than half the available cash of the Biden-Harris campaign and the DNC. And now, new reporting from Politico suggests the Trump campaign is already looking for ways to cut costs. Maybe Trump wouldn't be in this position if the funds he raised, actually went toward his campaign coffers, not his legal fees. Starting off the hour with us, former Homeland Security and Counterterrorism Advisor to Vice President Mike Pence, Olivia Troy, and former Executive Director of the New York State Democratic Party, Basil Smikle. Thank you both so much for being with us.
Thank you. Good to have you guys. Olivia, I want to start with you on this whole idea that I don't know why everyone's acting so surprised that Donald Trump is still diverting or trying to find ways to divert his money from the RNC to his campaign. But the deal that the RNC has now struck with them, how does all of this play out? I mean, at some point donors have to sit there and go, do I really want to pay for his legal fees while I'm trying to, at the same time, get a candidate that I support elected to office?
Yeah, well, one would think that when you're donating money, you want it to go to the purpose that you want it to go to. Right. But, I mean, that's a basic 101. But I don't think that that's what's happening here, obviously. And Trump's made a living out of filling his pockets with other people's money. So now he's using the donors. And look, I think what you're going to see is down ballot and in local races, if you're a donor, I would say pay attention to what's happening here, because that principled person that you think you're supporting is not going to see a dime. It's really just going to the top of the party. So they're better off
just giving their money directly to those candidates and by party.
Stay away from the party. Yeah. Stay away. It's all going to what? Save America. It's going to the Trump National Committee. That's what they should change their name to. That's what it is right now. And the Trump Legal Defense Fund.
Basil, oh my goodness, I could just imagine as a former state party chair, you're like, oh, goodness. The people talk about not giving directly to the candidates and not to the party. I mean, look, we hear a lot on all across in the papers, on television, about how Donald Trump is narrowly beating Joe Biden in these polls that are more than 7 months out from a general election. But money is very important here. That is how you can put on events. That is how you campaign. That is how you can buy ads. That is how you can hire people to canvass. And Donald Trump doesn't seem to have the cash, but Joe Biden does. What do you think about what we're learning about the financial picture or lack thereof?
Well, I think Olivia is absolutely right. When you're running a party and you decide that you want to replace the leader of that party with someone that, you're related to, that you know very well, when the grassroots of that party is resisting you, that's a big problem, because that's what parties are very important in lifting the bottom of the ticket, right? So presidential campaigns in some ways can, worry about themselves because they also have a lot of these IEs and so on. But for all of those state level races, that's where that money becomes really important. And so when you have this advantage that Joe Biden and the Democrats have, you can put that money, find a way to put that money into states where you have these competitive races. New York, for example, does not play very heavily at the top of the ticket, but for all of those congressional seats that are going to be in play this year, where we, hopefully we can get Hakeem Jeffries to be the next speaker. That money is going to be critically important for all of those constituencies that may have concerns about voting for Joe Biden and the ticket. This is where he can put money into those states, into those communities, whether it's TV ads, whether it's digital ads. You can experiment a little bit. So there's a lot more flexibility to push out a lot more voters with that cash advantage.
Basil, I'm struck by the fact there's been all this reporting about how President Biden and his campaign, they're not going to touch the Donald Trump legal issues. Specifically, the president is not going to speak about them. Instead, what they're doing is kind of going after this idea that he is broke. This is from the Biden-Harris campaign. They put out a statement. Is not raising the funds needed to reach voters or even campaign a good strategy? Is trailing your opponent in cash on hand by nearly 4-1 and hitting up donors to help cover your own personal debts instead of funding your campaign a winning formula for November? So you see sort of the dance they are doing here.
Well, on the legal issues, yeah, you don't want to bog down the voter in the legalese. Right. Zoom out and talk about the values. And one of the values that I think is coming out here is that the man is a hypocrite. Somebody A long time ago, one of my early political mentors said that voters might forgive a liar, but they won't forgive a hypocrite. And when you try to create that that disparity, that dichotomy between the Donald Trump that ran in 2016, you know, I'm this billionaire, I've done all of this for all of these people, and then you really get down to it, and it's like the guy's actually broke. Not only has he lied to you, but he's created this artifice. He's created this persona that is paper thin. And I think his voters see that and they say, well, you know, this guy's just like everybody else, except Joe Biden, because he's out there talking about, you know, values and creating these really important contrasts.
Right, that contrast, Simone. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so Olivia, if voters won't forgive a hypocrite, that means Republicans are going to spend a long time in confession trying to work that forgiveness thing. I love that line, by the way. Your mentor was very, very right and smart on that. How does, I mean, the money aside, because, you know, that's something that in terms of voters, they just write a check or move on or they don't donate, they give in other ways. Broad picture, the state of these two campaigns as we sit here on this Palm Sunday getting ready to get into the spring part of the campaign, where do you think voters are looking at this with this idea of the hypocrisy of the Republican Party versus the values of Joe Biden? How do you see the assessment so far?
Well, I think it's interesting, right? I mean, you know, like he said, you're seeing the Democrats be organized. They're doing what the party should be doing. They should be cultivating rising stars. They should be running things on the ground. They should be growing their platform and really supporting their voters and what they want. Instead, what you see on the Republican side is what are they doing? There is no platform. There's no plan. So where is the future of the GOP? It's dying. I mean, that is the issue here. And so I think it's going to continue to go spiral downhill. You're not going to see candidates win. I think they're going to continue to lose because there really is no grassroots game, because there is no support for the party down ballot, right? I mean, it's all focused at the top. And if you look at it, they're saying, yeah, every dollar will go to Trump at the top. So outside of money, there's no growth for campaigning. There's no training,
but for actual
right?
Campaigning
actual
and
training, actual
right.
preparation. I mean, I was at the RNC. I started my career there. I was doing grassroots training for outreach, Latino voters, minority communities. That's what the party does.
The program they just got it.
They got it. Yeah,
that's the program. One of the programs they
I
got
used to
rid of.
run that program. Yeah. That doesn't exist anymore.
And I elevated up the program and called it coalitions, and they started screaming because I actually put money into going out and meeting voters.
Oh, imagine that.
Oh, they
imagine
didn't tell
that.
you were doing DEI, did they?
DEI, right.
Not DEI engagement. God forbid. God forbid the Republican Party apparatus does DEI.
Lord have mercy.
I mean, can we just talk about, you know, I love to drag a broke campaign because, you know, I've worked on broke campaigns before and have been dragged. So let's drag a broke campaign. Politico is talking about it is brass tacks time for cash-strapped Trump campaign. You've got the donors in this Politico story talking about that they need, making an acknowledgement that the campaign needs to begin building up its war chest. You've got a former senator from Georgia who is a major donor, Kelly Loeffler. Y'all remember Kelly Loeffler saying that, make no mistake, it's not going to be easy. That's an understatement. I mean, if we had to just rate the Trump campaign's ability and, frankly, the Republican National Committee's ability between now and the start of summer, because you don't got all until the fall. You have now until the start of summer to really get it together. On a scale of, 1 to 10, where would we put it? I think it's a 4 for me. That's me personally.
Basil?
A 3 to 4 is about right, because, if you're Donald Trump, this isn't about anybody else. It's about him. And he's probably pretty strident in telling people that. Like, it's not about you, it's about me. And at some point, the donors are going to get really tired of that. They are already. But when they start losing members of Congress and the Senate races look tighter and tighter, they're gonna start making some more noise.